Ever found yourself in a situation where reality is stranger than fiction? Well, that's how I felt when I discovered my new roommate was a vampire. And not just any vampire, one with a day job. Yes, you heard me right. Let me tell you about the time I had to navigate the bizarre world of night shifts, blood cravings, and the quirkiest living arrangement I've ever experienced. It all started with a desperate Craigslist ad. My previous roommate had left abruptly, and I needed to find someone to share the rent of my overpriced apartment fast. I was bracing myself for all sorts of weirdos, but when Vlad responded, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. His email was brief. Quiet. Prefer dark rooms. Available to meet after sunset. No red flags there, right? Rent in the city is no joke, so I decided to meet him. Vlad showed up precisely at 8 p.m. He was dressed in a black suit, wearing vintage sunglasses despite the night. He looked like a character straight out of a Dracula movie. Pale, dark hair slicked back, and an accent that sounded distinctly Transylvanian. We exchanged small talk, and he mentioned he worked nights. Perfect, I thought. No clashes with my 9-to-5 schedule. Vlad was polite, well-spoken, and handed over first and last month's rent in cash. How could I say no? He moved in the next day. Vlad's living habits were eccentric from the get-go. He brought in 2 large, ancient-looking trunks, which he locked tightly. His room? Darker than a cave. He installed blackout curtains that would make a vampire proud. Every time I offered to share a meal, he declined, citing special dietary needs, and retreated to his room with a thermos. Some kind of liquid diet? I joked once. He just smiled and said, something like that. Our schedules barely overlapped. He left for work just after sunset and returned right before dawn. Honestly, he was the ideal roommate. Quiet, considerate, and always on time with the rent. I was willing to overlook his quirks. One night, curiosity got the better of me. Vlad had left his room unlocked, and the door was ajar. I couldn't resist peeking inside. It was like a Gothic-themed museum. Candles everywhere, a creepy amount of old books, and a mini fridge. But what made me freeze in my tracks were the bags of blood inside it. Before I could react, Vlad walked in. I panicked, thinking my days were numbered. But he calmly said, I can explain. I braced myself for the worst. Vlad confessed he was a vampire. My brain went into overdrive, processing this revelation. So, you're not gonna, eat me or anything, right? I stammered. He laughed, a deep, hearty laugh. No, I have a more modern approach to sustenance, he said. Plus, my job provides what I need. I had to ask, what exactly is your job? Turns out, Vlad worked at a blood bank. His night shift involved processing and storing blood donations. The perfect cover for a vampire, right? He assured me he had no interest in harming anyone, and that his job kept him well supplied. I had to admit, it was genius. A vampire with a 9-to-5, or rather 9-to-9 job that involved blood management. We both laughed at the absurdity of it. He even joked about how he had fewer issues finding a steady supply than in the old days. He mentioned that while there were others like him, many stuck to old-school methods. He preferred this modern, less invasive approach. Life with Vlad settled into a routine. We became friends and often spent late nights watching classic horror movies. Ironic, right? He was surprisingly knowledgeable about modern life, giving me tips on everything from cooking to stock market investments. Who knew vampires could be so savvy? There were still awkward moments, like the time my boyfriend dropped by unexpectedly, and Vlad had to hide in his room because of the garlic bread we ordered. Or when my friends asked why my apartment smelled like incense and candles all the time. Vlad's presence even turned out to be comforting. He was always there to lend an ear or offer advice. He even helped out with rent when I was between jobs, thanks to his excellent financial planning. Evidently, centuries of life make you a great saver. Living with Vlad taught me a lot about acceptance and finding humor in unexpected situations. Yes, he was a vampire, but he was also a good friend who respected my space and supported me when I needed it. One day, I asked if he ever missed his old ways. He sighed. Sometimes, but this life is less lonely. I get to help people and have a place in the world. Eventually, Vlad moved out to start his own blood donation consultancy. We stayed in touch, and he even came over for holiday dinners, carefully avoiding the garlic dishes. So, what's the moral of the story? Sometimes the strangest situations can lead to the most enriching experiences. My time with Vlad, the vampire roommate with a day job, taught me that everyone has their quirks. Embrace the weird and unexpected. It's what makes life interesting. And if you ever find yourself living with a vampire, keep some garlic-free snacks on hand. You never know when they might drop by for a chat.